I don't play accurately. No, anyone can play accurately, but I play with a wonderful expression. Yes, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches out of Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Oh, by the way, Lane, I noticed from your book that when Lord Shawman and Mr. Worthing died here last Thursday, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Tell me, Lane, why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for the information.
I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage really as demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I have only been married once. That was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I am much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. I mean, really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Ah, my dear Ernest, how are you? What brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else would bring one anyway? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in polite society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country?
What on earth do you do then?
Well, when one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It's excessively boring.
And what people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
What nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. Oh, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
There? Shropshire? Yeah, yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta. And Gwendolyn.
Oh, perfectly delightful.
Oh, yes, it's all very good, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My good man, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
Well, I am in love with Gwendolyn. I came up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you had come for pleasure. I call that business.
How likely and romantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is perfectly romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the excitement is over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I shall certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algy. The divorce code was specially invented for people with your curious constitution.
There's no use speculating on the subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
But you've been eating them all this time.
That is a different matter entirely. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter instead. The bread and butter is from Gwendolyn.
And very good bread and butter it is too.
What do you mean, eat if you're going to eat all of it? Like as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think that's right.
That's nonsense.
It isn't. This is a great truth, and it accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My good man, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I can give my consent, you're going to have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone with that name.
Lady, would you please bring in the cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left when he dined here last Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you had my cigarette case this whole time? I wish you would let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Oh, I wish you would. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
Well, there's no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
I think that's rather mean of you, Ernest. Thank you. Oh, but it makes no matter, for now that I read the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read the inside of another's private cigarette case.
Oh, it's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I have no doubt about that, and I do not propose to discuss modern culture. It's not the sort of thing that one should discuss in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Ah, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you have already said you don't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, and a charming old lady she is too. She lives in Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
If she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells, why does she call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily, with the fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, other aunts are not tall. That's clearly a matter that an aunt should be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt, and that is absurd. For goodness sake, Algie, give me my cigarette case back.
Oh, but that does not account for... Now, if Cecily is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells, why does she call you her dear uncle? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her dear uncle? I can't quite make out. And besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You've always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I know. Oh, it's on your card. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest, if ever you attempt to deny it, to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
My name is Ernest in town, and Jack in the country. That cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Oh yes, but that's not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily calls you her dear uncle. Come, out with it.
My dear fellow, you speak as if you were a dentist. One should not speak like a dentist, and one is not, in fact, a dentist. It produces a false impression.
But that is exactly what dentists always do. You must not have the whole thing out at once. I might add that I've always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth is a Bunburyist?
Yes, I will reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, you must produce my cigarette case first.
Now produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing at all improbable about my explanation. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was young, made me in his will granddaughter to Miss Cecily Cardew, who, out of motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, calls me her uncle and lives at my place in the country, under the admirable governing of Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
My dear fellow, that is no matter to you, for you will never be invited. I may tell you candidly that it is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that. I have Bunbury all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. However, whenever one is placed in a position of guardian, one must adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. And, as a very high moral tone may not be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany and who gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, dear sir, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
Well, that would hardly be a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You much better leave that to the people who haven't been to university. They do it so well in the daily papers. Oh, no, what you are is a Bunburyist. Yes, I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. In fact, you're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
Allow me to explain. You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, so that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented a perfectly invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, so that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I choose. Oh yes, Bunbury is perfectly invaluable, for if it weren't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I really have been engaged on Augusta for more than a week.
I have not asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
Oh yes, I know. You really are absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
I really think that you had better dine with Aunt Augusta.
I have no intention of doing anything of the kind. In the first place, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am treated as one of the family, and sit down with either no women at all, or 2. And in the third place, oh, I know quite well who she will seat me next to. She will seat me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. It's not very pleasant. Indeed, it's not even decent, and that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The number of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It just looks so bad. It is simply washing one's own clean linen in public. And besides, now that I know you are Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
But I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I shall kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him anyway. Cecily is a little bit too much interested in him. So, I will get rid of Ernest, and I strongly advise that you do the same with your your friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever do get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. Any man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she is the only girl in all my life that I've ever met who I would marry, I will never want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. What you don't seem to understand, my dear fellow, is that in married life, 3 is company, and 2 is none.
That is the same theory that has been propounded by the corrupt French drama for the past 50 years.
Oh yes, and that the happy English home has proved in half the time. That'll be under Gus and Gwendolyn. Only relatives or creditors ever reading that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get out of the way for 10 minutes so that you may have an opportunity of proposing, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
But you must be serious about it. I hate people who aren't serious about meals. It's so shallow with them.
Lady Bracknell, Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling quite well, Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart, am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. That would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry for you late, Algernon. I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbour. I haven't been there since her poor husband's death. I've never seen a woman look so altered. In fact, she looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Oh, certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come and sit here?
Oh, I'm quite comfortable where I am, Mamma.
Good heavens! Lane, where are the cucumber sandwiches?
There were no cucumbers in the market, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers!
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had talked to Lady Harbour. She seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
Yes, I get repairs to quite go to the reef.
It certainly has changed its colour, from what cause I, of course, cannot say. Thank you, Algernon. I'm quite a treat for you tonight. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman, and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you this evening after all.
I should hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
Yes, I need hardly say it is a great bore and a terrible disappointment to me, but the fact is I've had a telegram just this morning saying that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill. They seem to think I should be with him.
This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Oh yes, Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, Algernon, I think it is high time this Mr. Bunbury decided whether to live or to die. This shilly-shally is absurd, nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. That's something I'm always telling your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice. At least as any improvement in his ailment goes. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me if he would not have a relapse on Saturday. For I require you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that encourages conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has said everything they had to say, which, in most cases, was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. And I think I can promise he'll be quite all right by Saturday. Although the music is a great difficulty, for if one plays good music, people don't listen. But if one plays bad music, the people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've drawn out if you will be so kind as to accompany me into the next room for a moment.
It is very thoughtful of you, Algernon. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French music I cannot possibly allow. People think it is improper, and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. But German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I believe is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing, for whenever people talk to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else, and That makes me so nervous.
But I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl that I have ever met since I met you.
So I am quite aware of the fact, and I often wished that in public, at any rate, you had been a bit more demonstrative. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly stated in the provincial pulpits, I am told, and of course has reached the more expensive monthly magazines. My ideal has always been to love a man of the name of Ernest. The name inspires confidence. From the moment Algernon mentioned he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
Do you really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
Do you mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name weren't Ernest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes. But supposing that it were some other name, could you still love me then?
Then that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has absolutely no reference at all to the current facts of life as we know them.
Yes. just quite frankly, Gwendolyn, I've never been very fond of the name Ernest. I just don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Oh, I really think there are a lot of other nicer names. Jack! This is a charming name.
Jack? Oh, that has very little music, if any at all. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known more than several Jacks, and they have all, without fail, been more than usually plain. And besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who was married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must be christened at once. Oh, I mean, we must be married at once. There is no time to lose.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Yes, well, surely, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe that you were not entirely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The question has not even been touched upon.
Well, may I propose now?
I would certainly advise you to do so. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it's only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn, darling!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
But you already know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it. I'm afraid you have very little experience in how to propose.
My own one. I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. My brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. How wonderfully brown your eyes are. Quite brown. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially without other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise from this under-recumbent posture. It is most indecent.
Mamma, I would beg you to retire. Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are engaged to no one. If you are to be engaged, I or your father, should his health permit, will inform you of that fact. It is to to determine herself. And now, Mr. Worthing, I have a few questions to put to you. And while I am making these inquiries, Gwendolyn, you will await me in the carriage.
But Mama!
The carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage. You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you, Mr. Worthing, you are not on my list of eligible young men. I have the same list as the Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact. However, I am ready to add your name, should you prove to be what a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Lady Bracknell, I must admit that I smoke.
I am glad to hear it. A man always needs an occupation of some sort. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. What is your age?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man wishing to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing.
I am pleased to hear. Ignorance. I despise anything that messes with the natural ignorance to be found. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, it produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious problem to the upper classes and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
About 7,000 or 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. Between the duties of one's life and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about love.
I have a house in the country as well, with some land, of course, attached to it, about 1,200 acres, though I do not depend on it for my real income. The poachers, I believe, are the only ones who make anything out of it.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that can be cleared up later. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl of a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I have a house in Belgrave Square, though it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham, though I can retrieve it at any moment, well, with 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
Yes, she is a lady considerably advanced in years. She just doesn't get around much.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What are your politics?
I'm afraid that I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us. Or they come in the evenings at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
Lady Bracknell, I'm afraid that I've lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
I must admit that I don't know who my father is. Lady Bracknell, I told you a moment ago that I had lost both my parents. It might have been nearer to the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew found me and named me Worthing because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Well, Worthing is in Sussex, it is a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to a seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
Oh,
Yes, a rather large, black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew find this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station, it was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing! I confess I am somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or anyway bred in a handbag, seems to me to show contempt for the modern decencies of family life and the worst excess of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, the cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion and has probably indeed been used for such purpose before now. But it can hardly be used as an assured basis for a good position in recognizable society.
May I suggest ask what I should do then? I need hardly say that I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
Mr. Worthing, I suggest you make a definite effort to find some relations, and make a definite effort as well to find a parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I don't see how that is possible. I can produce the handbag at a moment's notice. I have it in my dressing room at home. Surely that would be enough to satisfy you.
Me, Mr. Worthing? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that Lord Bracknell or I would allow our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and make an alliance with a parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing!
Good morning! Alfie, how can you sing that dreadful air right now? How idiotic you are!
Didn't it go off all right? Oh, you don't mean to say that Gwendolyn refused you? I know it is a way she has. She's always refusing people. It is most ill-natured of her.
Oh no, Gwendolyn is right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, they are already engaged. Her mother, on the other hand, is perfectly unbearable. I never met such a gorgon. I don't even know what a gorgon is like. And yet I am sure that she is one. She's a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. Algie, I'm sorry. I shouldn't speak of your own art in front of you like this.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't the remotest knowledge of how to live, nor the slightest instinct about when to die.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't.
Oh, I won't argue with you. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were originally made for.
Well, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. Algie, do you think that in 150 years, Gwendolyn might become like her mother?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased, and quite true, as any observation in civilized life ought to be.
Oh, I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. It's an absolute public nuisance. I just wish there were a few fools left.
Oh, there are.
I should like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? Oh, about the clever people, of course. By the way, Did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
The truth isn't the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about how to behave towards a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
That is nonsense. You're always talking nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Oh. I suppose I'll have to kill him before the week is out. I'll say that he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You'd much better say a severe chill.
You're quite certain that a severe chill isn't hereditary?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My brother Ernest was carried off in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew is a little too much interested in your brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
Well, Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She's got a capital appetite, she goes on long walks, and she doesn't pay attention at all to her lessons.
I should rather like to see Cecily.
I shall make great care to see that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't just blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are certain to be perfectly great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they meet they'll be calling each other something like sister.
Women only call each other that after they've called each other a lot of other things first. If we want to get a good table at Willis's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it is nearly 7?
It's always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
Well, what shall we do after dinner? Go to the theatre?
No, I loathe listening.
Well, shall we go to the club?
Oh no, I hate talking to people.
Well, we might trot round to the Empire. 10.
Oh no, I loathe looking at things. It's so silly.
Well then, what shall we do?
Nothing!
It is very difficult work doing nothing. Although I don't object to work when there's no definite objective of any kind.
Miss Fairfax?
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolyn, I really don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life, and you're not quite old enough to do so. Ernest, I fear we may never be married. From the look on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents pay any attention to what their children say nowadays. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Any influence I had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But, although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and though I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing she can do will alter my eternal devotion to you.
Gwendolyn, darling.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
And there is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That will require further consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Algy, you may turn around now.
Oh, thank you, I've already turned around.
You may also ring the bell.
May I see you to your carriage?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
You can pack my smoking jacket, my dress clothes, and all of
yes.
the Bunburys. Thank you, Lane. I hope it will be a good day.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you're a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There goes a beautiful, sensible, intellectual girl, the only girl I ever loved in my whole life. What are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just anxious about Bunbury.
You know that your friend Bunbury's going to get you into a serious scrape someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
Oh, that's nonsense. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Watering your flowers is rather more considered than yours, especially knowing what intellectual pleasures await you. Now come, your German grammar on the table. Pray open at page 15, we will continue yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It's not at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well it looked quite plain after my German lesson.
You know how anxious your guardian is that you improve yourself in every way of life. He laid particular stress on your German before he left for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German before he leaves for town.
Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanor is especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I have never met anyone with such a higher sense of duty or responsibility.
I suppose that's why he often looks bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthy has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in this conversation. Besides, you must remember his constant anxieties about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
Oh, I wish he would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down and visit sometimes. I think we'd have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I know you certainly would. You know things like geology and German and things of that nature influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I could have any effect on a man who, according to his own brother's admission, is so irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I'm not sure that I would want to reclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania of turning a bad person into a good person at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I do not see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary we all keep with us.
Yes, but I believe it chronicles all the things that never happened or couldn't possibly have happened. In fact, I believe that memory is responsible for all the 3-volume novels that Moudet sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of a 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in the earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? Oh, how wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good end happily, and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so. But it seems terribly unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was unfortunately abandoned. I mean that in the sense that it was lost, or mislaid. But to your work, child, these speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are you this afternoon? Is Prism you all well, I trust?
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her much good to have a short stroll with you through the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not said anything about a headache.
Oh no, Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. In fact, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is odd. Were I Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke in metaphor, of course. My metaphor was drawn from the bees. Has Mr. Worthington town yet?
We do not expect it until Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes, Mr. Worthing often spends his Sundays in London. He is not the type of man that lives solely for pleasure, unlike that brother of his by all accounts. And now, I shall not disturb Igaria and her pupil any longer.
Igaria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
The classical allusion merely drawn from the pagan authors. And I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong?
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll. I find I do have a headache after all, and a walk might do it.
Excellent. We may make it to the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Those metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Poor political economy. Poor geography. Horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven up from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany West. Uncle Jack's brother? Did you tell Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss, he seemed quite disappointed. However, I did mention that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak with you privately.
Tell Mr. Worthing to come here. I suppose you should talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met a truly wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he'll look just like everyone else. Oh, he does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother. My cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, really, I'm not wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think that I am wicked.
Well, if you're not, and you've been deceiving us in a rather inexcusable manner, I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be very, very bad and being very good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
I suppose I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I really have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, but I'm sure it's very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I don't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack will be back till Monday afternoon.
Yes, that is a great disappointment. I am obliged to go up by the first train Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
Oh no, it is in London.
Oh, well, of course I know how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of beauty in life. But still, I think you'd better wait until Uncle Jack returns. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
About your emigrating? He's gone out to buy your outfit.
No. I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. There's absolutely no taste in neckties.
I don't think you require neckties. He's sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you'd have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the reports I've received of the next world and of Australia have not been particularly reassuring. This world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
Oh no, I'm afraid I'm not that. That's why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It's rather quixotic of you, but you better try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
Oh yes, that is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I shall remember that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires frequent and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Oh, thank you, but might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
Wash down here?
I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it could be quite right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never talks to me like that.
Well, the Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You're the prettiest girl I ever saw in my life.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They're a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I would quite like to catch a sensible man. I should know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone here, Dr. Trustable. You should get married. A misanthrope I can understand. A womanthrope? Never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The practice and the precept of the primitive church is distinctly against matrimony.
Well, that is obviously why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And besides, you don't seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, men become a permanent public temptation. You must be very careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And not even to her, often I am told.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can be trusted, ripeness depended on. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits.
Perhaps she followed us back from the schools?
Mr. Worthing!
Mr. Worthing!
This is indeed a surprise. We did not expect you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than expected. Dr. Chaucer, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I hope these garbs of woe do not disturb some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead!
Your brother is dead!
Right, dead.
What a lesson. I trust you will comprehend.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer my sincerest condolences. You should know that you are always the most gracious and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He was a man of many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, Miss Prism. None of us are perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to drafts. Will the internment take place here?
No, he seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? Well, that does not indicate any stable sort of mind. Well, I assume you wish me to make some allusion to this terrible domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of mana in the wilderness can be adapted to any occasion, distressing or cheerful, as is not in this present case. I have preached on the subject of harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, on days of humiliation and festal days. The last time I spoke on the subject was in the cathedral before the Society for the Preservation of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop was particularly struck by some of the analogies that I drew.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Tossel? I suppose you know how to christen all right. I mean, you are continually christening, are you not?
I prefer to say that it is one of the rector's most constant duties. I often spoken with the lower classes about the subject, but they do not seem to understand what thrift is.
But is there any particular infant you are interested in? Your brother was unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
Men who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child, dear doctor. I am very fond of children. No, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon if you have nothing better to do.
But are you not christened already?
I don't remember anything of it.
And you had no grave doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have, but if it would bother you, or you think think I'm a little too old now. I wouldn't want to.
Well, the sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Sprinkling is all that is required and I believe necessary under the present circumstances. Our weather can be so changeable these days. What time would you like to perform the ceremony?
Oh, I might trot round about 5, if that's all right with you.
Perfectly. I have two similar cases this very afternoon. A case of twins born on a cottage on your very own estate. Good Jenkins the carpenter, a most hard-working man.
Oh, I don't think that it would be very much fun to be christened with other babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably. And now, Mr. Worthing, I shall not intrude on your house of sorrow any longer. I shall only say this. Do not dwell too far in your melancholy. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack? Oh, Uncle Jack, I'm so glad to see you back, but... Oh, what horrid clothing you have on. Do go change them.
Cecily!
My child!
Uncle Jack, what's the matter? Do you look happy? You look as if you have a toothache. I have such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
What?
Your brother Ernest, he arrived a half hour ago.
What nonsense, I haven't got a brother.
Uncle Jack, don't say that. However badly he behaved to you in the past, he's still your brother. You could be so heartless as to disown him. I'll go get him, and you'll go shake hands with him, won't you?
Well, these are joyful tidings indeed!
After coming to terms with his demise, his sudden return is peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what to make of it. It seems to me perfectly absurd. Good heavens!
Brother John! I've come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble that I have caused you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think he's coming down here perfectly disgraceful. He knows very well why.
Uncle Jack, do be kind. There's some good in everyone. Ernest was just telling me about his poor invalid friend that he goes out to visit quite often. And there must be some good in one who's kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit beside a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Ernest has told me all about Mr. Bunbury and his poor state of health.
Bunbury! Well, we won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Although I admit all the faults were on my side, I must say I find Brother John's coldness peculiarly painful, especially considering that it is the first time I have come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't take Ernest's hand, I'll never forgive you.
You'll never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Well, it is the last time that I will ever do it.
What a most perfect reconciliation indeed. I believe we should leave the two of them alone for a while. The rest of us shall take our leave.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Yes, Miss Vincent. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful deed today, dear child.
Let us be premature in our judgments.
Very happy.
Algie, you young scoundrel! You've got to get out here as soon as possible. I do not allow any Bunbury here.
I have placed Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to your own, sir. I trust it is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and placed it into the room next to yours.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 large hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
Yes, I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a field fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes,
I haven't heard anybody call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures in the slightest.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
I will not have you talk about Miss Cardew that way. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. But perfectly ridiculous, it is quite childish to be in mourning for a man who is actually staying with you in your house for a whole week as a guest.
You will not be staying in my house for a whole week as a guest or as anything else. You've got to go on the 4-5 train.
Well, I certainly won't leave you as long as you're in mourning. It'd be most unfriendly. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me, would you not? I would think it most unkind if you didn't.
Will you go if I change my clothes?
I suppose, although do be quick about it. I've never seen anybody take so long to dress and with such little result.
Well, it's better than always being overdressed as you are.
If I am occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, it is no matter, for you've got to catch the 4-5 train back to town. I hope you will have a pleasant journey. This bunburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you. Good day.
Well, I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that's everything. I must see her before I go and make arrangements for another Bunbury. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you on a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then, have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
It's always painful parting from the people that one's known for such a brief space of time. The absence of a good friend one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one's just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait there then for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I'll enter your remarks into my diary.
Oh, do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it, may I?
Oh, no, you mustn't. You see, it's merely a young girl's record of her thoughts and impressions and consequently meant for publication. I hope when it appears in volume form, you'll order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. As might be taken down from dictation, I have reached absolute perfection. You may go on. I'm quite ready for more. Oh, you mustn't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me you love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
I think Uncle Jack will be quite annoyed to know you're staying until the next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care for anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. Oh, you will marry me, won't you?
Oh, silly boy. Of course. Why, the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
It'll be 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack admitted to us he had a younger brother who is very wicked and bad, you, of course, formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course, the man who is often talked about is always very attractive. One thinks that there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, Ernest, but I fell in love with you.
Darling. Oh, and when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I decided to settle the matter one way or another, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under this dear old tree here. The next day, I went out and I bought this ring in your name, and this is the bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you to always wear.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And this is the box in which I keep all of your letters.
My letters. But, my dear, sweet, loving little darling, I have never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember quite too well I was supposed to write your letters for you. I wrote 3 times a week, and sometimes often.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh no! They make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I broke off your engagement were so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was, on the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry in my diary if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I thought it was best to do so. The weather continues charming.
Why did you break it off, Cecily? What on earth had I done? I had done nothing at all. I am very much hurt to hear that you broke it off, Cecily, especially when the weather was so charming.
Well, it would hardly have been a real engagement if I hadn't broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
Oh, what a perfect angel you are.
Oh, you dear, sweet, romantic boy. I hope your hair cuts naturally, does it?
Oh, yes, darling, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily?
I don't think I could now that I've actually met you. Besides, there remains the question of your name.
Of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it's always been a girlish dream of mine to marry someone whose name was Ernest. There's something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. Why, I pity any woman whose husband's name were not Ernest.
But, sweet child, do you mean to say you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what other name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
I don't like the name Algernon.
But, oh, my sweet darling Cecily, I really can't see why you should object to the name Algernon. It's not a bad name at all. In fact, it's rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps who end up in the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name were Algie, couldn't you still love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I wouldn't be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in all of the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Yes, Dr. Charles Will is quite a learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on a most important christening. I mean, business.
Oh?
I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we've been engaged since February the 14th, and I've only just met you today, I think it's rather hard of you to leave me for as long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
Miss Fairfax has just arrived to see Mr. Worthing on important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Didn't Mr. Worthing go off in the direction of the library?
Mr. Worthing went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray, tell the lady to come here. Mr. Worthing should be back soon. And we can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. Probably one of the elderly women associated with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are associated with philanthropic work. I think it's a forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Carter.
Cecily Carter, what a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say, and my first impressions of people are always right.
It's so kind of you to like me after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
If you like.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If it pleases you.
Then the matter is all settled then, is it not?
I hope so.
I think now may be a favourable opportunity for telling you who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa is, I am glad to say, entirely unknown. I think that's as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. Once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that. It makes them so very attractive. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It's part of her system. Would you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, please do, Gwendolyn. I'm quite fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh, no, I live here.
Oh, your mother or the female guardian of advanced years lives here also?
No, I have no mother, or, in fact, any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, have the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, on Mr. Worthing's ward.
How strange, he never mentioned to me his having a ward. He grows more mysterious hourly. And yet I cannot state that this fills me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you, but now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help but express a wish that you were, well, a little older than you seem to be and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Oh, please do. I think that whenever someone has something unpleasant to say, they should always speak quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. My Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest moral character are highly susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern no less than ancient history provides us of many examples of what I refer to. In fact, if this were not the case, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes?
Oh, but it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
How strange, he never mentioned to me his having a brother.
I'm afraid they haven't been on good terms for a long time.
That explains it, of course. Now that you mention it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Oh, Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would be terrible for a cloud to have come across a friendship like ours. You are quite sure not Mr. Ernest, who is your guardian.
I'm quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
I see no reason why I should keep it a secret from you, Gwendolyn. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Married? My darling Cecily, there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
You must be under some strange mistake, dear Gwendolyn. He proposed to me not more than 10 minutes ago.
That is certainly very curious. He proposed to me yesterday at 5:30. Pray, verify the incident if you would like. I never travel without my diary. One must always have something sensational to read in the train. I am sorry if it is any inconvenience to you, my darling Cecily, but I am afraid I have the prior claim.
It would pain me more than I can tell you, Miss Fairfax, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. I'm bound to point out to you that since Ernest has proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
Poor boy has been swept up into any sort of terrible promise. I shall see it as my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Any unfortunate entanglement my dear boy has got himself into, I should not approach him with it after we are married.
Do you dare allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. In matters such as these, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you refer to me, Miss Fairfax, that I have entrapped Ernest into a marriage? How dare you! This is no time to wear the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm glad to say I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social circles have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Yes, quite a few. And the tops of one of the hills quite nearby, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden you have, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea so many flowers grew in the country.
Flowers are as common here as people are in London.
I don't know how anybody manages to live out in the country, if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
I believe that's what the newspapers call agricultural depression. I believe the aristocracy is suffering quite a bit from it nowadays. It's almost an epidemic among them, I've been told. Would you like some tea?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen in the most fashionable houses nowadays.
Hand this to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with sugar, and though I most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my sweet, trusting, innocent boy from the machinations of any other woman, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
I knew you were awful from the moment I met you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
Seems to me, Miss Fairfax, I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt there are other calls of a similar nature you have to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest!
Gwendolyn, darling.
A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put that idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
Miss Fairfax, I knew there had to be some misunderstanding. The man whose arm is present around your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh!
Yes, Ernest.
My own darling.
A moment, Ernest. Tell me, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
Watch out. Gwendolyn.
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. I mean, to Gwendolyn.
No. That's such an idea into your pretty little head.
Thank you. You may.
I felt there must be some slight error. The man who is presently embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Oh, is your name really Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But it is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on the both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet, prompt Gwendolyn.
You will always call me sister, will you not?
One question I'd like to be permitted to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is in fact the first time in my life that I have ever been reduced to such a painful position, and I've really had an experience of doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother, and I have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
My darling Cecily, it is clear that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It's not a very pleasant position for a young girl to find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. Neither of us will follow us there. Neither of them will follow us.
Yes, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
So this ghastly state of things is what you call bunburying, is it?
Oh yes, and a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, I don't allow any bunburying here.
Oh no, one has a right to Bunbury whenever one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows this.
Serious bunburies? Good heavens!
One must be serious about something if one wants to retain any of the joy of life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What on earth you're serious about, I haven't the faintest idea. About everything, I should imagine. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
My only satisfaction, a small satisfaction, in the whole of this wretched business, is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run up to the country quite so often as you used to do, dear Algy, and not a very bad thing either.
Your brother is looking a little off-color, isn't he, Jack? You won't be able to slip off to London as often as your wicked custom was. And not a bad thing either.
Well, as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I find your taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that quite inexcusable. To say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can think of no possible defense, Jack, for your deceiving a brilliant, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Miss Fairfax. That is all. I love her.
Well, I wanted to be engaged to Cecily. That is all. I adore her.
Well, there is no chance of you ever marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there is much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it were my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It is very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that. And that merely at dinner parties.
How you can sit there, calmly eating muffins, when we are in this wretched business, I can't make out. You seem to me perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butler would probably get in my cups. No, one should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I mean that it is perfectly heartless you eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I am distressed, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I am in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating muffins because I am unhappy. And besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Oh, there's no need for you to eat them all in that greedy way.
Have some tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
What you have just said was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless for you. Under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algy, I wish to goodness you would go.
Oh, you can't ask me to leave without having dinner first. I never go without my dinner. No one ever does, except vegetarians and people like that. And besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Charleston to be christened at 6:15 under the name of Ernest.
The sooner you give up that foolish nonsense, the better. I made arrangements myself this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:30, and naturally I will take the name of Ernest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be Ernest. It is absurd. Besides, I have a perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence whatsoever that I ever was christened by anybody. I should think it very probable that I never was, and so does Dr. Chasuble. It is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Oh, yes, but I've not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Rightly so. So I know my constitution can handle it. If you are unsure about your ever having been christened, I dare say I think it's very dangerous you're venturing on it now. It might make you very unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was nearly carried off in Paris by a severe chill.
You said yourself that severe chill is not hereditary.
Oh, it used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in things.
Nonsense. You're always talking nonsense.
Oh, Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you would have. There's only 2 left. Have tea cake instead.
But I hate tea cake.
On earth, you allow it to be served for your guests. What ideas do you have in hospitality?
Algernon! I already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't finished my tea yet. And besides, there are still muffins left.
dynamite.
Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit terrified. The best of all the years have gone by. Turn around. Now and then I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the look in your eyes. Turn around, bright eyes. Every now and then I fall apart. Bright eyes. Every now and then I fall apart, and I need you now. And I need you more than ever. You won't be holding tight. We'll be holding on forever, and we'll only be making it right. Come on, let it roll. Together we can take it to the end of the line. Your love is like a shadow on me all of the time.
All the time, I don't know what to do. I'm always in the dark.
Living in a powder keg and giving off sparks. I really need it tonight. Forever's gonna start tonight. Forever's gonna start tonight.
Once upon a time I was falling in love. Now I'm only falling apart. There's nothing I can do.
A total eclipse of the heart.
Once upon a time there was light in my life. Now there's only love in the dark. There's nothing I can do.
A total eclipse of the heart. Turn around, bright eyes.
Every now and then I fall apart.
Turn around, bright eyes.
Every now and then I fall apart.
And I need you now and then. I need you more than ever. And we're only holding tight. But we'll be holding on forever, and we'll only be making it right.
Come on, let it roll.
Together we can take it to the end of the line. Your love is like a shadow on me all of the time.
All the time.
Don't know what to do, I'm always in the dark. Living in a powder keg and giving off sparks. I really need it tonight. Forever's gonna start tonight. Forever's gonna start
Once
tonight.
upon a time there was light in my life. Now there's only love in the dark. There's nothing I can say.
A total eclipse of the heart.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect. You will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I am very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your wisdom is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
So that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory response, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
Oh, I don't. That does not affect the beautiful, beautiful answer that he gave me.
True, in matters such as these, style and not sincerity is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you provide to me for pretending you had a brother? Was it so that you would have an opportunity to come up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
Oh, I have many doubts on the subject, but I intend to crush them. Now is not the time for German skepticism. Cecily, their answers seem to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I'm more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires absolute credulity.
Then, do you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
true. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
Admirable idea. I almost always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon!
For me, you're prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
To please me, you're willing to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How silly it is to talk about the equality of the sexes where matters of self-sacrifice are concerned that are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
We know moments of physical courage of which we women know nothing.
Darling.
Darling.
Lady Bracknell.
Oh, good heavens!
What does this mean? Merely that I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any sign is mental decay in the young and besides physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of small coin. I followed her at once on the luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am glad to say, under the impression that she's attending a more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of permanent income on thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. Indeed, I have never undeceived him on anything I would consider it wrong. But you must be quite aware that any communication between yourself and my daughter must cease from this moment. On this point, as on all points, I stand firm. I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell. You are nothing of the kind, sir. Now, Algernon? Algernon!
Yes! Yes! Aunt Augusta.
May I ask if in this house your dear friend, Mr. Bunbury resides?
Bunbury. Oh no, Bunbury is not here at present. That is, I mean to say, Bunbury died.
Died? When did he die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this morning. Bunbury died!
What did he die of?
Oh, Bunbury, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he is well punished for his morbidity.
Oh, no. What I mean to say, Aunt Augusta, is that Bunbury was found out. The doctors have found out that Bunbury could not live. That is to say, I mean, that Bunbury died.
Mr. Bunbury seems to have had great confidence in the opinions of his physicians. However, I am glad he made up a definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we've gotten rid of Mr. Bunbury, Mr. Worthing, may I ask whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner? That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
Cecily and I are engaged to be married, Aunt Augusta.
Pardon me.
Mr. Moncrief and I are engaged to be married.
Exciting in this part of Hertfordshire. But it seems to me the number of engagements that goes on seems considerably above the proper average statistics has laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry would not be odd on my part. Mr. Worthing, may I ask if Miss Cardew is affiliated with any of the larger railway stations in London? I had no
known until yesterday anybody whose families or persons or whose origins was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervase Park, Dorking, the Surrey, and the Sporin, Fifeshire, NB.
That's not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspires confidence, even in tradesmen.
I also have the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
I have known strange errors in such publications.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Markby, and Markby. A firm of the highest position in their profession. Indeed, I've heard that one of the Markbys goes to dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
I'm so pleased to hear it, Lady Bracknell. You will also be happy to know that I have certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English variety.
Life crowded with incident, although perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I've always disliked premature experiences. Come, Gwendolyn, we have not a moment to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I had better ask, does Miss Cardew have any little fortune?
Well, about £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. I was so pleased.
Please! Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now. Look at her. You girls have many really solid qualities these days. Qualities that last and improve with time. Come here, child. Pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair is almost as nature might have left it. But we could soon alter all that. An experienced French maid produces a very marvelous effect in a brief span of time. Indeed, I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing. After 3 months, her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Turn around, sweet child. No, the side view is what I want. Yes, there are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weaknesses of our age are want of principle and want of profile. The chin a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn. The chin is worn quite high at present. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in your profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world, and I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society. Only people who can't get into it do that. My child, you must know that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend on. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. Indeed, when I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind. But I did not dream for a moment of allowing it to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may call me Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Yes. I think the marriage had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I am not in favor of long engagements. It gives people the chance to learn each other's character before marriage, which I find is never advisable.
Pray excuse me for interrupting, Lady Bracknell, but I must say that this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and without my consent, she may not marry until she comes of legal age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask? Algernon is extremely, I may almost say ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing but he
What more can you want? It pains me to speak frankly, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew in front of you. However, I do suspect your nephew of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible, he's Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by means of the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of my Perrier-Jouet Brut 89, a wine specially reserved for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he proceeded in the course of the afternoon to alienate the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea, where he devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more disgraceful is that the entire time he knew full well that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I have no intention of ever having a brother, not even of any kind. I told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, I have decided to overlook my nephew's conduct.
That is very gracious of you, Lady Bracknell. However, my decision is unalterable.
Come here. Come. What is your age?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
You are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. A woman should never be honest about her age. It looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, since you are soon to come of age and free from the restraints of tutelage, I do not see why your guardian's consent is of much importance.
Pray excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you once again. However, I think it only fair to inform you that, under the conditions of her guardian's will, she does not come legally of age until she is, 35.
That does not seem to me a grave objection. 35 is a perfectly attractive age. London society is full of women who have been 35 for years. Lady Dumbleton is an instance in point. She has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40. I do not see why Miss Carter would be any less attractive then as she is now. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algernon, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt instinctively you'd say that, but I couldn't wait till I was 35. I hate waiting for anyone, even for 5 minutes. It always makes me rather cross. I myself, I know I'm not punctual, but I like punctuality in others. And waiting for anything, even marriage, is quite out of the question.
Then what's to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states that she positively cannot wait till she is 35, a comment which I am bound to say shows a somewhat impatient nature, I beg of you to reconsider your decision.
Oh, but Lady Bracknell, the decision is entirely in your hands. If you consent to my marriage to Gwendolyn, I will most happily allow your nephew to form an alliance in my ward.
You must know that what you propose is out of the question.
Well, then a passionate celibacy is all any of us can ever look forward to.
I propose for Gwendolyn. Algernon, of course, can make his own decisions. Gwendolyn, come. We have missed 4, if not 5 trains already. To miss any more might comment on the platform.
Everything is ready for the christenings?
The christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both of these gentlemen have expressed interest in their immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesquely irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. Lord Bracknell will be highly displeased if he learned that this was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
Am I to understand that there are to be no christenings this afternoon?
I do not think, dear Dr. Chasuble, that at this point in time it would serve much practical purpose for anyone.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you. It echoes the views of the Anabaptists, views which I have refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons on the subject. But since you seem to be in a particularly secular mood today, I believe I shall return to the church. I have just heard from the pew master that Miss Prism has been waiting for me for a good hour and a half in the vestry.
Miss Prism! Did you say Miss Prism?
Yes, I am to see her at the church immediately.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. This may be a matter of vital importance to both Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies. She is the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. What position does she hold in your household?
I am celibate, madam!
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's most admirable governess.
Despite of what I hear of her, I must see her. Have her sent for at once.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I would hope you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism! Prism, where is that baby?
Oh dear.
28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. But you never returned! A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered on a remote corner of Bayswater at midnight. It contained a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there! Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame, I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, that is forever bred in my memory, I planned as usual to take the baby out of his perambulator. I had with me an old but capacious handbag into which I intended to place the manuscript of a 3-volume novel that I had worked on in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me that, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you placed the handbag with that infant.
In one of the larger railway stations of London.
Which railway station?
Victoria. The Brighton line.
I must retire to my room. Gwendolyn, you will wait for me?
If you do not take too long, I will wait for you the rest of my life.
What do you suppose this all means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble. You must be aware that in families of higher position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very peculiar nature.
The noise is extremely unpleasant. It sounds as if we were having an argument. I detest arguments. They sound vulgar and are often convincing.
I believe it has stopped.
I wish I could arrive at some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine, yes. Here is an injury received in Grosvenor Street on an omnibus, and here is a tear in the lining caused by an exploding beverage exploding temperance beverage in younger and happier days. And here on the log are my initials. I forgot that in an extravagant mood I had them placed there. I'm so delighted to have this restored to me. It's been a great inconvenience to be without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby that you placed in it.
You?
Yes! Mother!
I'm
unmarried. This is indeed a terrible blow. But who may cast a stone against one who has suffered? Does not repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there's some error. There is a woman who can tell you more about who you really are.
Lady Brandon, I hate to be inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
The news I have may not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief. And consequently, Algernon's older brother.
Alfie's elder brother! I always knew I had a brother! I knew it! I always said I had a brother! Cecily, how could you doubt it that I had a brother? What to talk about? My unfortunate brother! My unfortunate brother! Gwendolyn! My unfortunate brother! Oh, Alfie, you're a scoundrel! You have to treat me with more respect in the future! You never treated me like a brother in all your life!
Not till today, I admit. Well, I tried, but I was out of practice.
My own one, but what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Oh, good heavens! I'd completely forgotten that point. I suppose that your decision on the subject is unalterable.
I never change except in my affections.
What a noble character you have, Gwendolyn.
Well, then the decision had better be figured out at once. Aunt Augusta, at the time that I was placed in the handbag by Miss Prism, had I been christened?
Every luxury that money could buy had been lavished on you, including christening by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened? Oh, well, that settles that. But what was my Christian name? Tell me the worst.
You were naturally christened after your father.
Yes. And my father's Christian name was... Yes.
I cannot at the present moment recall. But I'm sure he had one. The general was eccentric, I admit, but only in his later years. And that was the result of Indian climate, and marriage, and indigestion, and other things of that sort.
Algie, do you remember what our father's Christian name was?
Oh, my dear boy, we were never on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
Well, I suppose that his name might appear in the army list of the period. Would they not, Aunt Augusta?
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I'm sure his name would appear in any military directory.
I have the army records of the last 40 years right here! These delightful records should have been my constant study! And generals. Oh, Madam, Maxbom, Magley, what ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Nobbs, Moncrief. Lieutenant, 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, General, 1869. Christian names. Ernest John. Gwendolyn, darling. I was told you my name was Ernest, didn't I knew it was Ernest. I knew, well, naturally it was Ernest.
I actually remember the General's Christian name now. I know I had a reason for disliking the name.
And my own Ernest, I knew from the first you could have no other name.
Oh, it is a terrible thing to learn that one has been telling the truth all his life.
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one.
Letitia.
Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolyn, at last.
My nephew, you are showing signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I have, for the first time in my life, realized the vital importance of being earnest.